Chapter 80. 4.18 Third Blue Star. Failed scheme. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Yi Jing returned to the institute 3 days later. This time he didn't bring any of his subordinates but came together with Xie Yi, whom he begged to help him check the man they would be meeting right now. First, they need to meet the dean, Professor Lan Sen, and his adopted son, Li Xing, who would accompany them to meet the person. Dean's office. When Xie Yi and Yi Jing arrived together, they were welcomed by two familiar faces. One from Professor Sen, who helped them before, and Li Xing, who is a part of their small group from room 0373. Both Yi Jing and Xie Yi were wearing semi-formal attires. Yi Jing is wearing a well-fitted cotton midnight blue blazer over a pure white shirt and blue jeans. This gives him a bit more of a casual feeling instead of a formal one. Meanwhile, Xie Yi is wearing fitted charcoal gray pants and an overcoat. Inside of the coat are light gray long sleeves and a long checkered scarf hanging on his neck. He looks elegant and noble. This time Yi Jing knocked on the door properly and didn't enter as he wished. After all, the room is his future father-in-law's office. He doesn't want to look unmannered in front of his elder. Knock. 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 An elder man's voice was heard from the inside. "You may enter," he said. After receiving permission, Yi Jing opened the door and gestured for his elder brother figure to enter first before him. Xie Yi steps inside the room first without hesitation. Yi Jing closed the door after he entered. Li Xing welcomed the two of them with a smile. He served some tea and snacks on the small table for them. "Please have a seat." "As xie.ge," said Li Xing. Yi Jing happily smiled at his lover while Xie Yi remained expressionless but still gave Li Xing a nod before taking their seat. In an office table not far from them, Professor Sen is looking through papers as if he is busy while in his mind. System. System. The villain is here. He still looks scary. What should I do if they notice that I'm just acting? Don't worry, host. Even if they notice something is wrong, they would just think there's a problem in your brain or that you're bipolar. You fucker. Uttered Sen in his anger towards his system. Back to reality. Professor Sen had put down his work with a friendly expression on his face as usual. The original Sen had this kind of temperament and he continues to portray it as such. "I heard you guys want to meet my little friend. But are you guys sure? As my son said before, is a psychopath with personality problems. Meeting him means taking some risk." I had no problem with Xie Yi as he could most likely remain calm in face of anger, but i.e. you should prepare to get teased a lot when you meet my little friend, said Sen with a knowing smile. "Why would he tease me?" asked Yi Jing. Professor Sen replied honestly, "Because you look fun to tease. My friend is a bit too playful. You shouldn't get angry. At the same time avoid getting him angry, lest you wanted to hear your black history being narrated for you to hear. As my father is not joking with that. He would really narrate your black history with a straight face while his narration is full of emotion. It was creepy as hell, and the last one he did that to, had run off crying. It's a psychiatrist that my father invited before. But don't worry, as long as he finds you interesting then he wouldn't be that bad to talk to," said Li Xing. "Oh. Okay," said Yi Jing with apparent hesitation in his tone. Only after a while that Xie Yi entered the conversation. He first enjoyed his tea before talking. "You wanted me to become his psychiatrist every time he went to the scene," said Xie Yi. Li Xing was the one who answered. "Yes, xie.ge. But there is no need to agree right away. You can meet him first. If you are willing after that, then I'll leave him in your care. You said he is like Loner but a jolly type, is that it?" said Xie Yi. "I couldn't explain it properly. xie.ge should meet him yourself," replied Lin Yi. Seeing that everyone had done talking, Professor Sen stood up from his chair to escort the rest of them. "Seeing that you guys are ready, then let's go," said Senior. After leaving the dean's office, they walked out of the main building and with Professor Sen in lead they arrived in a separated small manor a few meters away from behind the main building. The manor was secluded from the way where humans trends into, even the way towards it was hidden due to tall trees and trimmed bushes on the road. Just from how far this house is from the rest, one could obviously guess that the owner doesn't like interaction with other humans much. When they've reached the manor, Professor Sen entered the place with the security verification that the owner gave him. After inputting the key code, the electronic door clicked open. "Please follow me closely," said Professor Sen as he gestured to the ones behind him. But before he could even take a single step inside the manor, a human figure jumped on Yi Zheng, surprising everyone. Xie Yi effortlessly dodged Yi Zheng, who lost his balance, and the human who suddenly jumped on him. They were currently about to fall in the dirty ground. The two fell with force, but only Yi Zheng received the full weight of the person on top of him. Bam! With his head and back aching, his sight twirling and feeling the heavy thing on top of him, Yi Zheng couldn't stop himself from cursing out loud. Fuck! Who the hell? He was even more shocked to see the face of the one who suddenly jumped on him. Li Guang. Why in fucking hell are you here? Hiss. Damn, my head, it's splitting, said Yi Zheng as he felt the pain behind his head unbearable. Li Guang reached out worriedly, seeing Yi Zheng in pain. Why did Yi Zheng, are you alright? I'm sorry. It wasn't my intention, He wasn't able to complete his words because someone kicked him on his waist. The strength within the kick is enough to feel his ribs aching as if it was broken. Li Guang couldn't stop his scream as he was kicked off Yi Zheng. Ah! Li Guang heard a familiar voice speaking to him, but the tone was tinted with anger. Get off! You shit! It was Li Xing who was angered enough that he cursed for the first time. He was staring down at Li Guang with a piercing cold glare as if he wanted to stomp on him a few times before he was satisfied. Li Xing saying cursed a word is something Yi Zheng, Xie Yi, and Professor Sen heard for the first time in this life. They would never expect such a crude word coming out from the mouth of a good boy like Li Xing. It was shocking enough that Yi Zheng even forgot the pain in his head. Silence ascends in the area. It was so quiet that they could only hear the wind blowing and the migrating birds chirping. The stillness in the area had continued until they heard a chuckle from somewhere else. Chuckles looking for the source, they saw a jaw-dropping beauty with an almost impeccable features before them. This captivating young man has pitch-black glossy hair, sickle-shaped eyebrows, an imperial nose, phoenix-shaped eyes and a pair of ink-blue orbs glowing under the sunlight like sapphire gemstones. His face value matches Gue Lan's awaited future self. But if Gue Lan's appearance gives out the feeling of seeing a untainted elegance of a glacier's cold and dazzling, then this person give out a sultry impression of a mythical nine-tailed fox. Tempting but perfectly refined. He leans at the door frame with an indolent poise but with elegance. Like a little seductive elf scrutinizing them of their reason for being in his presence. There's a devious smile in the corner of those luscious-looking lips, but despite his smile within the depths of those sapphire irises concealed cooled eyes as if nothing could melt them. This person's enthralling appearance astonished them beyond words. Then a melodious but coquettish voice resounds in the area, taking everyone's attention only on him. My dear guests, you came over earlier than I expected. You've even brought an extra with you, said the bewitching man as those sapphire orbs fell on Li Guang's person when the question was asked. He is plainly pointing out that Li Guang is an unexpected guest and was asking them if this person was brought over with them. Li Xing was the one who answered the question while helping Yi Zheng stand from the ground. He is an outsider. I didn't invite him as your guest. Sir, hey, said Li Xing. After listening to Li Xing's answer, the smile on that flawless face slightly widened as he watched this attractive person walk over Li Guang, helping him to stand up as he was still seated on the dirty soiled ground. With his slender, snowy hand outreached in front of Li Guang, Mister, you shouldn't seat on the ground. It's full of soil and you'll dirty your clothes, said the man Li Xing called Sir He. Li Guang blushed seeing those pair of alluring deep blues staring at him plus that enticing smile for an extremely handsome person. He held the outreached hand as he accepted help to stand up. He wanted to thank him. Thank why? Li Guang wasn't able to complete what he wanted to say because the following words that came out of the man in front of him had left him feeling aghast. The man only held his hand for at most 5 seconds before he threw Li Guang's hand away from his. They watched him pull out a clean black handkerchief, then wipe the hands that held Li Guang's hands as if it was tainted with germs, then threw the handkerchief away like some disposable trash. Shall I begin? Li Guang. 22 years old. Li Xing's elder twin brother. Oh, your feelings of anxiety is a huge but not a hint of guilt. Didn't your Li family framed a small family whose heart got a match with you? Forced the child with a matching heart as yours to death so you could extend your life. It was exhilarating to see a child bleed under your foot, not bad. Your family loves you too much that they could even commit murder. When entered SID you were very scared at first because you have a hidden agenda going on into your little rotten head. Pfft. The Metropolitan Police Headquarters is afflicted with pests. Funny that's not it at all. You suddenly fancied a man named Yi Zheng, but instead of pure feelings of love it seems more like you wanted to control him. A little seductress are we. As he continued speaking he gave Yi Zheng a glance as he spoke the last said sentence, but it seems that he isn't finished talking still. Thus he continued his narration. Must be you, he said to Yi Zheng. Then his gaze went back to Li Guang, whose face suddenly turned feeble as the charming man continued to speak. Amazing, you wanted to seduce your twin's boyfriend. Even stalking him to my house. You are quite interesting. There are still a bit more interesting facts from your past. The question is. Do you want continue? His eyes squinted in delight as his smile turned to a smirk. Looking at Li Guang, who could no longer bear those pairs of gauging eyes on him. No. I'm leaving, yelled Li Guang as he walked away with urgency at his every step. He is undeniably frightened at the fact that his whole past would be narrated for everyone else to hear, and he couldn't allow that to happen. He could only take his leave. Once the owner of the house saw the uninvited guest taking his leave, he strides back towards the interior of his house while saying to his guests. Please enter. The one who fell just now, there is a guest room at the right corner of the living room. Take a bath and join the rest later. As for everyone else, go follow me, said Sir He, who just walked past Xia Yi, not even looking at any of them. Xia Yi watched the man pulled out a pair of black gloves from his pocket and putting it on. Hiding those jade-like fingers and hands for others to see. By the way, my name is He Lan. You can call me that, the gorgeous man said before entering inside the manor. Chapter 81. 4.19 Third Blue Star. He Lan, you are listening at novelfull.audio. Inside the manor. After everyone followed the owner of the house to the parlor, only Li Xing and Yi Zheng separated from them and headed to the guest room for a short shower. Yi Zheng's current appearance is no longer presentable. Within the parlor is a minimalistic designed setting with colors of black, white and gray, a monochromatic hue. On the glass table an antique tea set was served for the guests. There are only 5 cups placed on the surface of the table. You can serve yourself some tea, said the owner of the house. The owner of the house took the single couch and served his own cup of tea. He just gave them a glance and gestured to them to take their seat. Once they took their seat, Professor Sun served himself and the rest with tea, as he knew that this little friend of his would never make his move to serve someone else. One could even see that he is the type to suffer an obsessive-compulsive disorder, OCD. He even prepared his own tea set, different from what he prepared for his guests. The room suddenly expresses the stillness of death. No one spoke nor started a conversation. Everyone in the parlor enjoyed their tea at their own pace. Professor Sun secretly watches the 2 people who used to have a very close relationship. Observing Xia Yi and Gue Lan, who is acting as if he doesn't recognize his former team members. What left him in shock is when the people, who came over with him, didn't seem to recognize Goe Lan despite him standing before them. System. What is happening here? Why did he call himself He Lan? This is so weird. Why is the villain acting like he couldn't recognize the Lord? Asked Sen to his system. They really couldn't recognize him. After all, they were all under his ability. The Venerable Lord used his special skill. Authority to bend the reality they knew. They still think that Goe Lan is missing. Which is why even if the Venerable Lord stood before them, none of them could recognize him. The host is spared because I blocked it for you. When did he do that? When he defeated the clone of that destroyer, the Venerable Lord used his ability to this whole star before he entered his slumber. Of course you had no idea about it. Because he used his authority not on the people but towards the heavenly laws of this star. The command is, let no one see me unless someone strongly thinks that I am Goe Lan. Holy shit. He could even take over the control of the heavenly laws of an A-ranked world. It only worked because at that time his real strength wasn't restricted. But if he is able to use his original cultivation, then this little star is nothing more than a pebble to his eyes. Gulps. Professor Sen chose to ignore what he shouldn't be knowing. Like they say, ignorance is a bliss. Then, what could they see him as? An enchantress with obsidian hair and sapphire irises. It is what he portrays. A scheming, seductive person with problems in the brain. Puff. Professor Sen almost chokes with his tea, but no one cares and ignores him. Sorry, the tea was too hot, excused Professor Senior. A/N, Goe Lan would be called He Lan as he introduced himself with that name. Plus his current appearance is different from the eyes of others. No one except Sen knew that he is Goe Lan. On the other hand, seated on the opposite of him, Xia Yi is frowning while peeking at He Lan's figure. He was using his mind-reading ability on the person, but for some reason he couldn't see anything. There is only a sullen silence and nothing more. Noticing Xia Yi stealthy looking at him, He Lan couldn't help but smile. He knew what is currently going inside the mind of this man. He must be thinking. Why couldn't I hear his thoughts? Who the hell is this man? An unknown entity. Should I eliminate it? Xia Yi is more bewildered than what He Lan thought. But he definitely hit the jackpot with the last sentence. Xia Yi already put him in his suspicious list. As long as he reached a certain threshold, the former would definitely move it to his death list. This person had no kindness towards the others except for Goe Lan. He could even abandon Yi Zhang and the rest given the situation. He is a cold-blooded person right from the very beginning. In that momentary silence, the couple who separate from the group before had finally rejoined them in the parlor. Li Xing had sat together with his foster father while Yi Zhang sat beside Xia Yi. The SID chief's clothes were different from when he entered the house. The shirt and pants didn't fit Yi Zhang, not because it was smaller in size but because it was a bit bigger than his body structure. Only Xia Yi's size would be well fitted in the clothes Yi Zhang is currently wearing. These were the clothes left in the guest room wardrobe which the two decided to borrow. The size of the clothes obviously doesn't fit He Lan's slender structure, plus his height had reached only 1.7 something meters. The clothes Yi Zhang is currently wearing is obviously not for He Lan to wear. Li Xing spoke, Sir He, we had borrowed clothes from the wardrobe in the guest room. I wonder if the owner will. No worries. He wouldn't mind. Those are just his spare clothes. There is no need for you to return it. He wouldn't mind losing a few shirts and pants, said He Lan nonchalantly. Is that so? Then please give the owner of these clothes my thanks, said Yi Zhang with a polite smile on his face. He Lan replied, sure. I'll pass your message. Not far from him, Xia Yi is observing intently with an ambivalent gaze. For some reason the words He Lan spoke just now left him some mixed emotion. He couldn't understand where it came from. He decisively ignores it for now. He Lan, you wouldn't visit me for no reason. But before that you introduce yourself except for this father and son. I don't know the other two. He then gestured to them to begin. I'm the chief agent of the Supernatural Investigation Department. You can call me Yi Zheng. Beside me is my brother. His name is Xie Yi. Based on the words this chief agent had said, He Lan looked at Yi Zheng and Xie Yi with ascertain eyes, but there's a mocking smile on the corner of his cerise lips. Brother. Pointing at Yi Zheng, you look silly and a bit na.ve. You seem super dense as well. While this one, pointing at Xie Yi, is more oppressive in nature and presence. Your feature greatly varies as well. If you are a mid-quality goods, then this one is an exclusive luxurious goods. If you're compared to a flower, if this man, Xie Yi, is an elegant black rose, then, Yi Zheng, you are a raffle. Professor Sen and Li Xing were holding back their laughter while covering their mouth with their hands secretly or by coughing intentionally. He Lan's words were suddenly cut off by this face-conscious chief, Yi Zheng. Okay. Stop. Just don't talk anymore. Xie Yi, not my biological brother but my elder brother figure, okay, said Yi Zheng, who cut off He Lan's words. TSK. What a bastard, murmured this bullied chief. Don't worry. I'm just teasing you, chief, said He Lan with a huge grin. Please talk about the serious business instead, said Li Xing. Yi Zheng said, oh right. Please help me with this, as he passed a small plastic pouch with a single, long, blonde hair strand inside. This hair strand is from a deceased Esper named Shauna. It was the latest victim of the Reaper. Yi Zheng wanted to check the conjecture of whether the Reaper used telekinesis to kill the victim or some other ability instead. Li Xing opened the plastic and poured the hair in a clean handkerchief before placing it on the table before He Lan. He knew that this person has a problem with regards to cleanliness. He Lan's eyes squinted but didn't make a move at all. He first looked at Li Xing. What do you want to check? He asked. It was Yi Zheng who replied to his question, please check what kind of ability the killer used. And clear details if you could see. He Lan took off his right-hand gloves. Because your evidence isn't fresh, the details won't be clear, you know, said He Lan. Yi Zheng frowned. Next time I will invite you directly to the crime scene. Sure, as long as I have my fund, replied He Lan as he closed his eyes and touched the hair to look through the remnant sentiments and memories left by the owner. The rest waited for He Lan to finish what he was doing. They knew that he is now using his ability to see through the past. Only Professor Sen knew that the so-called empathic retrocognition is just nonsense, and Gue Lan had come out. After all, Su Luan and Yun Li knew that Gue Lan had the ability to see through the past completely, not just those sentiments left by the target. What he could see is the full past memory of the deceased. It only took a few minutes for Gue Lan to finish. There's a hint of cold sweat converging on his slight paling face. Taking a tissue from the small table beside him, he slowly wipes his sweat, sterilizes his hand with alcohol, then puts back his gloves on. No one urged him to speak and waited for him to calm down. He Lan took a sip on his tea and was quiet for a few seconds. The image I saw isn't clear, as the time past had lasted for days. For days, I supposed. She was running for her life. Feeling pain all over her body. A solid object hit her back. Based on the feeling and shape, it must be a hilt or a handle. Her limbs were cut off one by one. It was floating knives controlled by a force. Mental energy, I guess. Her last moments were the funniest. Her head was cut off from her neck. It seems that she saw the face of his killer, but the image I got is very blurred already. But I felt the last emotion she got in her last moments. She was regretful. It seems that your Reaper is an extremely handsome man. That's the end of my report. Once He Lan finished telling them what he had seen, a heavy and serious atmosphere surfaced from the area. But among the group, only Li Xing and Yi Zheng's expressions were gloomy. Professor Sen acted calmly, as if he wasn't willing to involve himself into this. He Lan was unconcerned as he sipped his tea. While Xie Yi remained calm and there are still no emotions imprinted on his captivating face. Saying it has nothing to do with me. Cut scene. 15 years ago. A 6-year-old Guilin watched as his enemy's flesh, blood and soul faded away into nothingness. His eyes with the same color of the moonlight looked into the horizon blankly. Scrutinizing something from an unknown thing from beyond. The moment the last wisp of the destroyer's soul before him fades and as his fury subsides, only then does he feel that there is something wrong. With the seals in his body unlocked for a moment, his original enhanced intuition felt a certain uneasiness. "Host, is there something wrong?" his system asked. No wonder it didn't feel right. "So it was a clone," murmured Guilin. "What? A clone? This is not the destroyer's original vessel." Guilin covered his lip with his hand as he looked down, obviously thinking for a moment. "Based on the strength and durability of the physique and the presence of the soul. This is definitely just a clone. It should only possess half of the original's cultivation. But since he left a fragment of his soul and that fragment was meticulously destroyed by me means that his soul is already half destroyed. He shouldn't be able to take actions for at least a decade or so. Should we look for the original, host? The skill card I've activated is almost up. Since he should have hidden well for me not to notice right away that this is just a clone means he had an artifact with him that isolated his soul. This is not enough time. Host. Please be warned that the moment the skill card activation is up, a backlash would follow. You really need to enter deep slumber for healing your current vessel at least." Guilin replied. "I know. Let me do one last thing instead." He then looked at the sky as if seeing through heaven and used his special ability, authority, to bend even the reality itself on this world's heavenly laws. "Let no one see me unless someone strongly thinks that I am Guilin. I would be in front of them but wouldn't know it was me. A false existence called He Lan would appear instead of Guilin. Only his silvery orbs glints with sovereignty no one could defy. Heavenly laws of the current world. We shall course thy command. A/N we shall course thy command. This is an Old English meaning we shall follow your command. This is the last command Guilin had spoken before he entered his slumber. After this day the existence of Guilin becomes a missing entity and an existence called He Lan exists instead. End of reminisce. Chapter 82. 4.20 Third Blue Star. Special Officer, you are listening at novelfull.audio. With the help of He Lan's ability, Li Sheng and Yi Zheng had successfully obtained proof that the Reaper is able to steal abilities from his victimized espers. He got full control over the ability he got. Li Sheng spoke, "My speculations were now half proven. If we had invited Sir He on the day you found the body we would have known the Reaper's appearance as well. Sadly we are unlucky. Blame me for it, Xinger." "I shouldn't have hesitated," said Yi Zheng. "It's no one's fault as it's ill-fated. Let's focus on the plan first," replied Li Sheng as he gestured to his lover to speak. Yi Zheng nodded to his lover before moving his gaze to He Lan. "Sir He, I have an offer to make. I wanted to ask you to become Sid's special officer," said Yi Zheng. "Are you sure?" "I'm an unstable person," responded He Lan. There's even a playful smile on his face. Clearly, Li Sheng and Yi Zheng knew about He Lan's unstable mindset. Not only does he have a borderline personality disorder, he is even a certified distempered psychopath. The two could only ask for help from the one person who had the strength to stop this man's berserk state. They were staring at Xie Yi with pleading eyes. This is especially true for Yi Zheng, this silly puppy of their former group. Xie Yi only raised an eyebrow to those begging gaze and then averted his eyes to look at He Lan. Observing this man quietly. Thoughts of Xie Yi. Yi Zheng is right. This person is a bit like Lanner, but my Lanner doesn't act like a seductress. This man's every gesture gives away the feeling of temptation. A simple fluttering of his eyelashes can cause someone's heartbeat chaotic, sultry gaze that captivates even one's soul, and an indolent posture as if a demonic fox parading his alluring self. Would my pure, calm and aloof Lawner grew up into this? I don't believe it. They are just similar, but this is not my Lawner. With a mischievous and tempting smile on his face, why would this handsome sir here stare at me like that? Am I good-looking? Teasingly asked He Lan. He Lan's obvious flirting seems to have hit a stone wall this time. A very thick one. Xia Ye's emotions remained unmoved in spite of Gue Lan's full-bloom temptation. His face had the calmness of a dormant volcano. Unmoved by anything unless he wishes so. His gaze was fierce as a lion watching over his prey. Calculating and menacing. No. I am here to psychoanalyze you. But for someone who is supposed to have the ability to venture into the field of affinity, you don't seem to be the type to show compassion towards others. You have full control over your emotions. Even the expression you show is directly under command. It seems that I was called here for nothing then, said Xia Yi. He Lan looked at him as if he was quite entertained by his words, as there's a cunning smile on his face. I am pretty sure that you were not called here to take control of me nor help me simmer down my emotions every time I use my ability. I have no need for that. Your job is to stop me during my wild precariousness. Xia Yi and He Lan stared down at each other. Neither is willing to concede to the other, and so they had a Google showdown for a few minutes. One remained smiling while the other remained indifferent. The rest of the people in the room were watching them in silence. They could even imagine a black clouds converging between the two. In the end one of them lost. The cold-faced man clicked his tongue, disgruntled. Moved his gaze, I will only prevent him from dying, said Xia Yi. He Lan averted his eyes back to his teacup, well then I will agree with the offered position as well. As their words of agreement, Li Xing and Yi Zheng's faces were beaming with a bright smile. They were delighted with the events that unfolds before them. Only Professor Sun watches the whole affair as if watching a play. A play casted by He Lan according to his script. Then Uncle Sun, please let Xinger work with me as well, said Yi Zheng. Professor Sun stared at the silly puppy like the protagonist Gong before him. As long as He Lan is on the scene then I will agree, he replied. He Lan and Xia Yi joining in SID as special officers caused commotion in the whole unit. Not only that, both of them have a special rank, a high authorized rank personnel. A position just below the rank of a chief. There hasn't been much racket when Xia Ye's name was mentioned because he is a well-known figure from the Gue clan who had connections to the state itself. But He Lan's existence gave everyone a surprise, especially when his personal profile was shared for the unit as a reference. Contents of the profile. Note. None of this is possible in real life. He Lan 21 years old. Qualifications. PhD in psychology at the age of 18. Graduated within just 3 years with special honors and title. At the age of 20, he got his PhD in forensic medicine, graduated within 2 years, worked as a doctor, professor and psychologist for a year before Professor Sun scouted him to work in Psyche Institute as an associate professor. Talents. Glib mouth hypnotism special skill. Empathic retrocognition mental state. Unstable, please attention to the FF. He has borderline personality disorder. Tested and certified distempered psychopath a bit OCD.IC. Warning. Don't anger him or annoy him. Don't touch him unless it's completely necessary. Those with low esteem should not approach. If problems persist, contact his consultant. Xia Yi. Their thoughts converge as one and they only thought of one thing. A psychopath esper with personality disorder but extremely qualified and well accomplished. But what caught all their attention is his special ability as an esper. Empathic retrocognition. Cognitive mental types abilities are very rare since most abilities under this type is considered a high-level ability. An ability that allows a user to fathom timelines like the past and the future. The only person they knew who had this kind of ability is Gue Lan, which is telepathy. Yi Jing knew how powerful this ability is. Considering that someone with talent to hypnotize plus telepathy is owned by a bad person, then many things could go wrong. This is why cognitive skills are extremely sought for. After all, this is an exceedingly scary ability. Yi Jing brought He Lan to the most unsolved case in their unit, and it didn't take a while for him to prove his worth. The unit welcomed their arms to such a high-maintenance but talented weird person. There may be some episodes of this man beating others black and blue within the unit, but those are cases where the latter was at fault instead. He Lan had never been the type to move first. Crime scene. Homicide at 13th Street 3rd Block Manor. Inside the manor, He Lan watches the SID unit personnel moving around the house to clean up. Yi Jing had brought him to the location as soon as they'd received the news. Surrounded by numerous busy footsteps and police radio chattering in the background, He Lan stood right at the place where the deceased had died. He glanced at the people behind him. This time, instead of Li Xing escorting him from the institute, it was Yun Li who came with him. Not far from Yun Li is Su Luan, who came instead of Yi Jing. Xia Yi is watching in the corner as his consultant. Both Yi Jing and Li Xing remained in the headquarters today because they were preparing all the reports and possible ones that involved their serial Esper killer, the Reaper. The interior of the manor is a mess. Broken glass fragments from the windows and anything that is made of glass. Electronics like television, radios, surveillance monitor and camera were wrecked beyond means, as if it exploded from overloading electricity. The things inside the manor feels like it has suffered a huge disaster. This is also the reason why the cleanup is taking too long to finish, and they had to call He Lan to do his task first while the rest is being out in order. He Lan said to Yun Li, "I'll begin now. Move accordingly, don't let anyone touch me nor approach me." Yun Li nodded, "Don't worry. No one will be able to bother you," he replied. Beside him Su Luan is staring at him with an observing gaze. There's an obvious frown on his face. The one I'll empathize with is the murderer's side. "Just in case you guys move away as well." They followed the order and left a meter area circle around He Lan. He Lan averted his gaze and kneel on the floor on one knee. He removes the black gloves on his hands and touches the floor lightly with the tip of his fingers and closes his eyes to concentrate. With his eyes closed, he used his retrocognition ability to see the events in the past. At first he welcomed the abyss with his eyes closed in reality. The sounds in his surroundings slowly, little bit by bit, fading to silence. Only his heartbeats lingers in his ears. As even his heartbeats fade, countless of framed scenes appeared in his mind like a fast-moving film. He watched it indifferently until he found the start of the event before the murder began. The perspective is from the murderers. This time, as He Lan possessed the body of the murderers, he saw all what the former had seen: touch, smell and ear. All senses were synchronized. Murderer's perspective. I watched Mary outside the manor from the window. I saw my wife giggling happily within the embrace of another man. The man who was flirting with my wife is none other than my best friend Aaron. They were making actions to advance their romance. They shared a hug that was supposed to be mine. Mary kisses Aaron when that is only my right. Now they seem to be in celebration. I heard the rumors about this but didn't believe it in the beginning. I love my wife and trust my best friend. Until Mary started action. She started becoming easily irritated. She feels ill, as if suffering from morning sickness. Then she runs towards the bathroom every time I've served the meal. It is as if she is pregnant. But that's impossible. I was so busy lately and haven't touched her for a long time. Aaron visits at home become frequent and the atmosphere between them becomes ambiguous. I finally believe those rumors. I choose to plan a business trip. I told Mary the first would be away for 3 days. Before I left, I watched my wife show some sadness with tears in her eyes as she sent me away. Seeing her like this, I felt guilt for some reason. I almost told her the truth, but Aaron comes over to bring fruits and cakes for us. Seeing him come over, my decision turned finally. I left the house intending to catch them on purpose. If there is really nothing going on, then I would apologize to my wife and best friend. Either that or. Now I stood outside my house hiding in some corner and watched the disgusting scene unfold before me. Watch my wife and best friend's affair before me. I almost couldn't hold back my rage. I only wanted a normal life, a beautiful wife, good friends and a stable living conditions. Aside from that, I wished for nothing. I choose to throw away my past. Hide the fact that I am not a normal being but an Esper. I just wanted to forget that hellish life in that place and wanted to live like a normal person. But even that was not allowed for a monster like me. As Espers were treated like monsters. We are different from normals and we couldn't change that fact. I wanted to change it. I tried very hard to live like a normal person and eventually I failed. My wife put a green hat on the top of my head like a crown. My best friend betrayed me and had an affair with my wife. It was slapped on my face. They look so happy. Why couldn't I have that? I wanted that too. That was my dream. They've destroyed it for me. If so, then they could only disappear since it was not mine anymore. I'm just going to destroy it then. Murderer's perspective end. Heilon separated himself from that scene. After all, he already learned the details and found out who the murderer is. It was the missing husband of his deceased wife. Heilon murmured, so he had no involvement with this death. So boring. He watched as the man entered the manor, used his ability to control electricity and caused a blackout in the whole house. Then only the sound of a woman and man's voices screaming could be heard. No one else could hear them as the distance between houses is too far from each other. Moreover, the sound isolation of the manor is quite good, and then the murder occurred that night. A long night of blood killing. The husband killed the two. Heilon then closed his eyes in that space, slowly controlling his ability to be shut off so he could return to his past. Chapter 83. 4.21 Third Blue Star. Found you. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Murder case in 13th Street. Yunli, Su Luan and Xia Yi watched as Heilon used his ability to empathize with the murderer from the event that took place in this manner. With his eyes closed and concentrating on his task, Su Luan's face looked even more bewildered the longer he observed Heilon. His change of expression was noticed by his lover, Yunli, and asked him for the reason. Is there a problem, Alan? Your expressions are weird, said Yunli. Su Luan took a moment before answering, don't you think Heilon feels too similar to Guilin? Yunli's silence gave him the answer of agreement. But before they could continue this conversation, Xia Yi, who was smoking not far from them, interrupted their conversation. Don't talk nonsense. He is not Lanner, said Xia Yi. These words from Xia Yi ended the conversation in an instant. Su Luan didn't speak any more about Guilin. If Xia Yi says this person is not Guilin, then he isn't. I won't speak any more nonsense, said Su Luan as he averted his gaze from Heilon. Only the always silent Yunli glances at Heilon, then to Xia Yi, whose crimson eyes show conflict deep within. Noticeably that even Xia Yi is having second thoughts about Heilon's identity, but since he doesn't have proof he couldn't get involved. If Heilon is indeed Guilin, then he only needs to ask. He feels that as long as he truly believes that Heilon is Guilin, then he will get his answer. That's what his intuition says. There is no way two people in this world will have the same sound of heartbeat. He knew that Guilin's heartbeat never changes in normal circumstances. It only changes when he is around Xia Yi. Coincidentally, this person who calls himself Heilon shares this same fortuity. 10 minutes later. Heilon's eyes finally open, revealing the sapphire orbs that hide its real hue. He calmly stood up and walked towards Yunli, who prepared a spray bottle of alcohol. After disinfecting his hand, he wore back his black gloves once again. After seeing him wear his gloves again, he passed the papers with information about everything about this manor. "What did you get?" asked Yunli. After looking through the papers in his hands, "The Reaper is not involved in this case. This is a homicide crime scene. The murder is the husband," replied He Lan as he found the profile of the murderer. "It's this man." Su Luan took the profile with the picture of the man. "The murderer is a young husband with average looks." "The murderer is this one?" asked Su Luan. "Yes. A hidden esper with the ability to control electricity," replied He Lan. As if backing up He Lan's words, an officer who was tasked to check through the electromagnetic energy in the location picked up a high voltage of energy. Just like He Lan had said, it's an esper with the ability of electricity. The officer reported, "Sir. There's a high level of electromagnetic energy left inside the house. The murderer is feasibly an esper that is unregistered." Then they saw the good-looking man before them smiled mischievously, attracting everyone's attention on him. Even the officer who did the report couldn't stop himself from blushing. Special Officer He Lan's beauty is beyond even among the most gorgeous women in the world. He is just so otherworldly. Almost like a siren. "So beautiful," uttered the people from the SID unit in the crowd who saw He Lan smiled. Xia Yi spoke abruptly, breaking the trance of the people around him. He looked at He Lan as if scrutinizing him with a cold expression on his face. "You have something more to say?" "Speak," said Xia Yi. There's an obvious hint of annoyance in his voice. He Lan's smile just widened when he heard his tone, but the depths of his eyes turned colder. People around Xia Yi and He Lan felt as if winter arrived. They could feel the chill on their skin. "That, you are no fun as always." "What a boring man," said He Lan. Xia Yi replied calmly, "Stop wasting time." Fine, follow me then," said He Lan as he walks to the interior of the house, walking towards the study room. Study room. The room is well decorated with a medium reading table made with the finest wood. Besides, there is a desktop computer with an active internet connection. The room is well ventilated with 2 large windows. On the walls of the room are bookshelves full of hardbound books. Most of the books relate to business and finance. Yunli, Su Luan, Xia Yi and a few esper officers with defensive and offensive abilities follow after him. Inside the room He Lan walks as if he owns the place, but Su Luan's expression turns even more guarded as he follows after He Lan. His special ability is a passive type, but it is extremely life-saving. As soon as he entered this study room, Su Luan's expression turned gloomy and vigilant. Yunli and Xia Yi noticed the changes in his expression. If Su Luan is acting like this, then there is something wrong with this room. Su Luan's special ability is survival intuition. It is the ability to feel or sense any danger that may be life-threatening to the user or those around him. Xia Yi silently issued an order to the subordinates with them. "Stand by for sudden danger." "Yes." He followed He Lan inside the room and watched him stand in front of a bookshelf in some corner of the room. Seeing He Lan in that desolate corner, the suspicious sense of danger increases in Su Luan's heart. They watched He Lan move a few books here and there as if solving a puzzle. Then they heard a loud click as if some mechanism was undone. Click. Clang. Clang. The bookshelf before He Lan slowly moves to the side as if opening. When the bookshelf was halfway opened, Su Luan finally couldn't help but shout. "Put up the barrier," exclaimed Su Luan, who instantly grabbed Yunli beside him, pulling him away from the incoming danger he was sensing. "What?" said He Lan as he twisted his neck to look at Su Luan, who suddenly shouted. In front of him the bookshelf revealed what's behind it and saw a man covered thickly with blood, and there's electricity currently in his arms. He shot an electric shock towards He Lan's as he was standing in front of him. "Dodge it." "Alan," shouted Yunli instinctively. He Lan, who moved his head to look at the incoming attack before him, didn't dodge. Instead he smiled like a madman. Seeing this, Xia Yi jumped on him and hugged him as he pulled themselves in some corner of the room, successfully avoiding the attack. Since Xia Yi had issued the order before, the other espers with them were able to block the attack. Within the team with them there are espers that can initiate a barrier. Though the barrier was erected a bit late and some of them were injured. Thankfully the wounds were superficial. Capture him now, ordered Xia Yi while holding He Lan in his arms. They were both unharmed because of Xia Yi's enhanced and inhuman reflex. The other Esper officers worked as a group as they captured the unregistered Esper who is suspected for murder. It didn't take long for the murderer to get caught. They bound his arms and legs with special handcuffs for Espers. This handcuff sealed off his ability, making him like a normal person. The suspect struggles, "Let go me. Fuck. How the hell did you even find me?" he shouted as he was being escorted away. He glared at He Lan, who was the first person he saw when the door to the hidden compartment opened. But no one answered him. Instead, all their eyes were on the pair who were in charge of the case. They could see Xia Yi wanting to peel off the human band-aid on his body. Xia Yi while pulling off He Lan. "Let go. Damn. What the hell is wrong with you?" With a confused expression on his face, they saw He Lan not willing to let go of Xia Yi despite his face full of doubt. He was even moving his hand all over Xia Yi's body, but because Xia Yi's body is a lot larger than his, he couldn't hug him fully. He is a few hands short. Everyone watching them cannot stop themselves from blushing as they could even see the elven-like man put his hands in the clothes of the cold-faced man. After some effort, He Lan was yanked away by Xia Yi, whose breathing is slightly ragged from the struggle. He then glared at He Lan. "What is wrong with your head? Do you want to die?" There's an obvious threat on Xia Yi's words and tone. Looking at his hands then looking at Xia Yi, He Lan acted surprised. "Why couldn't I see anything?" Xia Yi threw him towards Yunli, who firmly caught him. But they only caught him and let go right away because of his OCD tendencies. "Ouch. I've just touched a bit. You're too stingy. Are you a woman or something?" complained He Lan. "Shut up, pervert," retorted Xia Yi. Before He Lan could jump on Xia Yi to show him his anger, Yunli held him back to prevent the fight between the two of them. Xia Yi just snorted at He Lan, who is now glaring at him as if he wanted to bite him. "Please calm down. Sir He," said Yunli. "Let go of me, Ollie, I'm going to beat up this bastard," replied He Lan. In the end, He Lan could only walk away in anger, leaving everyone else at the scene. After all, he finished his quota for today and Xia Yi angered him too much. Seeing this, Yunli could only escort He Lan back to the Psyche Institute as it was his duty. Everyone dispersed out the room. Su Luan, on the other hand, remained to talk with his boss. "Boss, I've found a hideout of Inferno. It is a bigger branch than the others. There must be more traces left there," reported Su Luan. "I will visit it tonight." "Make the preparation for elimination," said Xia Yi. He replied, "Yes. Boss." Su Luan melted in the shadows before completely disappearing from the room. As silence ascended inside the room, Xia Yi couldn't help but grab the clothes above his chest. There's a hint of pain in his heart and a feeling of satisfaction as if he found what he had been looking for. Within his eyes is indecisiveness and disbelief. He rubs his chest in comfort as he murmurs, "He is not my Lanner. There is no proof that he is Lanner. Since there is none, I could only look for it. Once I found it, only then I," whispered Xia Yi. Meanwhile, inside the car, Yunli is currently driving while in the back seat He Lan is lying down as if intending to take a nap. There's a cumbrous atmosphere inside the car. He Lan could see Yun-Li peeking at him through the rear view mirror inside the car. Based on the emotions within his eyes, He Lan could guess what's in this man's mind. "Just ask away. If you have some questions," said He Lan. Yunli hesitated for a moment before speaking. You are Guilin, right? He asked, but the way he speaks and tone is obviously not asking but instead confronting him with truth. Inside the car is a long tranquility. He Lan didn't answer Yunli's question, instead he sat up and placed himself right at the center directly proportionally at the mirror inside the car where he met Yunli's eyes. Look carefully at the mirror. Your eyes will tell you the truth you wanted to see, said He Lan. Yunli followed his words. He stared at the rear-view mirror looking at He Lan's reflection on it. Good thing that they were in the middle of traffic and the vehicle is currently halted. It took a few moments as Yunli saw He Lan's face in the mirror slowly twisted like an illusion. He blinked his eyes in comfort when his gaze once again stabilized. He finally saw the reflection of the man in the mirror. The man in the mirror was similar to his memories but more refined and perfected. With elegant features and noble forbearance. A wanderlust blue-green phoenix-shaped eyes which excludes grace and iciness of a frozen mountain peak. A grown-out layered straight-cut hair with the same hue similar to that of the sea. He had puffy lips which upturned to a mischievous smile. They were succulent, sultry and velvet soft. This person is truly captivating. His appearance is heavenly enough to think that he is a mythical being that is well known for their beauty like a siren. He is indeed Guilin. This is Guilin 15 years later. An adult version Guilin. Chapter 84. 4.22 Third Blue Star. Trap. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Inside the car. There's a mature Guilin in the mirror's reflection. Yunli was astonished that he immediately looked behind him and saw that very same face from the mirror. This is Guilin's appearance, not He Lan's. Yunli's intuition was right. He Lan was indeed Guilin. But he was confused, just before he was so sure that the one on the reflection in the mirror is a different face, but Guilin didn't use any ability. He heard no other movement aside from Guilin moving in the back seat. Sigh, it was a long sigh. I thought it would be I who would recognize me first. But it seems that he couldn't see me as clearly as I though he would, whispered Guilin. Seeing Yunli's bewildered expression, Guilin decides to explain it. But before that he laid back on the free seat staring at the car's ceiling. His explanation was like narrating a book. His voice and tone is monotonous. The reason you suddenly saw my real appearance is because the effect of the authority I've used faded the moment you were so sure that He Lan is me. I've put authority on everyone so that the appearance they could see before them is not me Guilin but He Lan's appearance. As for the reason why is it because of that man. Yunli understood which man Guilin was talking about. Is it that person who almost got everyone killed 15 years ago? Yes. I failed to kill him. He is still alive. Don't tell anyone about this. Not about that man or about me. Especially avoid I. He might read your mind and find out the truth. Then I would have any more fun things to do by then, said Guilin as he smiles. I will follow your orders, young master, replied Yunli. Then he remembered the scene where the Prime Minister said to stop looking for Guilin. At that time Xia Yi had almost gone crazy if not for the rest of the adults calming him down. Since that day Xia Yi rarely meets the Prime Minister. He is afraid that he might end up killing the old man. Thinking about this carefully, the Prime Minister must have angered Xia Yi on purpose. This is to avoid meeting the young man in case his mind was read. After all, the Prime Minister was most likely informed about Guilin's current situation. Who else knew about this? Asked Yunli. Father. Old Uncle Ku. Professor Sun and then you. Only 4 of you. It would be better if only a few people knew about me. At least until I eliminate that man from before. Anyway, forget about this for now. I'm going to sleep. Wake me up when we're back to the institute, said Guilin, who closed his eyes. He was so tired that he fell asleep right away. Yunli whispered, sleep well, Alan. Ever since this day Yunli rarely escorted He Lan in visiting the case. He only does the job when Xie Yi is not around. Every time he gives excuses that he is busy with work or something. Xie Yi rarely met Yunli since this day. The latter didn't think deeply about this as he was focusing all his energy in observing He Lan. After spending a few more times together that the awkwardness between He Lan and Xie Yi faded. Though they still continue to bicker most of the time, there are times they even eat meals together. Gone out to look after the case with just the two of them. The feelings between them were visibly ambiguous that even the other people from the unit notice it. But no one dared to comment after all. One is a cold-hearted man who doesn't even smile and the other is an always smiling person with personality problems. Both were scary and even stronger than any of them. They could sometimes even see their own chiefy getting bullied by He Lan so often. On the other hand, Xie Yi didn't dare cross the line he made between him and He Lan as he still hasn't found proof which evince that He Lan is Gui Lan. He chose to retain the distance between the two of them. Instead he treated He Lan as an intimate close friend. But everyone could obviously see that He Lan likes him. After all, this madman's indifferent eyes only softens when looking at him. Time skip. 6 months later. A dazzling morning. An Esper's corpse was once again found. The location is an abandoned barn at the outskirts of the central city. The deceased is a middle-aged man. He was fully naked and his body was hanged inside the barn with piano strings tied on his hands and leg joints. Suspended in air with strings as if he is some kind of puppet. When the main members of SID appeared. A group made up of the following members. Yi Zheng, Li Guang, Li Xing, He Lan and Xie Yi. As they entered the barn, the full scene of the naked man hanging in the area with strings, like a lifeless broken puppet, appeared before them. He Lan's eyes straight looked at the dead body before him. His eyes were wandering all over the deceased body with cunning eyes. Everyone thought that he entered a state of trance and waited for him to speak. His blue eyes paused to the groin part of the corpse and frowned. It's small. Like a shriveled mushroom. It looks ugly, said He Lan. Choke. Once he spoke those words, most men in the area except for the innocent dense one choke on their own saliva. Even Xie Yi couldn't help but cough a bit in warning. Cough. The silly puppy strikes. What small? A mushroom. This is an abandoned barn. There will definitely be some wild mushrooms growing here. Do you want to pick some? Asked Yi Zheng with an innocent expression on his face. Everyone was speechless with what their chief said and their jaws were left hanging in astonishment. Beside Yi Zheng, Li Xing squeezed the bridge of his nose as he let off a powerless sigh. On the other side, Li Guang was covering his mouth, trying his hardest to hold back his laughter. Only Xie Yi and He Lan stared at him directly, like looking at an idiot. TSK. What a fool. Murmured Xie Yi as he walked away a bit to lit his cigarette. He Lan pats Li Xing's shoulder in comfort. Do your best, with a rooting and mocking expression on his beautiful face. Please act as if you heard nothing, Sir He. Sigh, said Li Xing. But this is interesting itself, said He Lan as he sniggers while looking at Yi Zheng, who is now blushing in embarrassment as he now understood the meaning of He Lan's words just now. Tomato-faced Yi Zheng, please do your work, Sir He, said Yi Zheng. Everyone could even hear the sound of his teeth grinding together in anger. Seeing that He Lan's eyes lingers a bit longer on Yi Zheng annoyed him. Hey. Just where are you looking at anyway, said Xie Yi, who finally gestured to He Lan to do his work. Do what you came for. Tisk, stingy bastard. I bet yours is small too, said He Lan. Pissed off, Xie Yi retorted. Do you want me to or you for you to know whether it's big or not? He Lan didn't answer right away but stood in front of Xie Yi instead. He stood straight before him with his hand on his hips and a daring expression on his face. Do you Dare, a provocative sultry voice comes from He Lan's mouth with a mockery imprinted on his bewitching face. The two once again stared at each other, but this time there were sparkles exchanged in between their eyes and a threatening atmosphere rising up around these two. Li Xing and Yi Zheng had to break them off before they started fighting for real. "It's this way, Sir He," said Li Xing while gesturing for He Lan to leave with him. Yi Zheng was more forceful as he dragged Xia Yi out of the barn with a reason that he couldn't smoke in the premise of the crime scene. While Li Xing accompanied He Lan to check on the corpse, Yi Zheng accompanied Xia Yi outside smoking together. Outside the barn, Xia Yi was looking out at the horizon as if thinking about something. There is only the sounds of officers working near them and the smell of cigarettes they are holding. "Dage, can I ask you a serious question?" asked Yi Zheng. Xia Yi only glanced at him once before saying, "Talk." "Do you hate, Sir He Lan?" Xia Yi didn't reply right away. He took a while to finish his cigarette before answering. "If I hate him I would have killed him for being suspicious. Though I don't like him either. He reminds me too much of Gui Lan." Yi Zheng speaks. "It's been 15 years and 6 months. There is still no news about Alan. Not even you and XU.GE were able to find traces of him. Even the Prime Minister said to not find him anymore. It's obvious that He Lan likes you. Dage, why don't you?" His words were cut off when a loud sound of wooden breaking was heard. Xia Yi punched the wooden wall behind Yi Zheng, his crimson eyes glaring at him full of anger and anguish. Bam! "Shut up!" A cold warning voice from Xia Yi was heard. Yi Zheng stood stiffened to where he was. He immediately shut his mouth, afraid of incurring Xia Yi's wrath instead. He could only watch Xia Yi walk back inside the barn to meet the rest, and Yi Zheng simply followed after him to finish their work. Inside the barn, He Lan and Li Xing noticed the apparent change of mood from Xia Yi. Yi Zheng was the only one who approached the two for work. "What's wrong with him? Did he eat something wrong?" asked He Lan. Yi Zheng hesitated to reply. "Well. Li Xing interrupts their conversation, seeing his lover's weird expression. "Sir He said that this case does not involve the Reaper but it involves people from the syndicate," said Li Xing. Listening to this, Yi Zheng and Xia Yi took immediate interest in it. "What is it?" asked Yi Zheng urgently that he almost grabbed He Lan's shoulder, forgetting that the latter had a problem with cleanliness and someone touching him. A deep frown appeared on He Lan's face, seeing that Yi Zheng was about to grab him. Luckily someone blocked it for him. It was Xia Yi. "Watch your hand, fool!" scolded Xia Yi. Only then Yi Zheng remembers He Lan's obsession with cleanliness. Sore. Yi Zheng froze when he saw He Lan's icy gaze on him. His eyes were unfeeling and indifferent. He could even feel the looming danger about to approach him. He could only take a step back in fear. He Lan's gaze was too scary. Xia Yi had to cover He Lan's eyes to calm him down. Xia Yi whispered, "Calm down your temper." They heard He Lan take a very deep sigh. "Sigh, I'm a bit okay now. I will tell you what I saw back in the office. This place is too dirty. I want to take a bath first," said He Lan as he walks away from the barn. After seeing He Lan in the distance, Xia Yi hit Yi Zheng in the head before following after the one who left first. Holding the huge bump on his head, it wasn't on purpose though. Murmured Yi Zheng. "Let's go. I have a hidden first aid kit in the car." Continue the talk in the office," said Li Xing. "Okay. Let me give orders first," replied Yi Zheng. After issuing some orders and leaving Li Guang to control the scene, he left the place with the other three. This is to return back to their headquarters. Ever since He Lan had worked with SID as a special officer, Li Guang's actions were handled. He fears him too much that the latter isn't willing to stay in the same place as him for long periods of time. Li Guang faded from the scene of their little team. Once the rest of the main group left, Li Guang went to some corner and called someone. He was speaking on the person on the opposite side as if he was reporting. "They've taken the bait, master," said Li Guang. "That's good. Keep up the good work. A/N. I will mass release at March 5th. For now, please enjoy the daily updates. Chapter 85. 4.23 Third Blue Star. Regret you are listening at novelfull.audio. Metropolitan Headquarters. Supernatural Investigation Department. Office of the Chief. The main group had gathered in Yi Zhang's office. The interior of the office is designed with minimalism decors. There are few records on the shelves sticking on the walls. A small table at the center surrounded with couches where guests could take their seats. Not far away is Yi Zhang's personal table, which is now covered with piles of papers. It was obvious that it's an undone paperwork. As soon as this little group of four entered the room, He Lan jumped on the only couch covered in thick blankets and laid on it while hugging a huge pillow placed on the chair. This part of the office is obviously customized to accommodate this OCD.IC person. No one else but He Lan and Xia Yi sat on that couch. He Lan expected Xia Yi to sit at the other end of the couch where he usually stays, but unfortunately that this time Xia Yi instead walked past the couch where He Lan sits and sat on the other free couch that is a bit far from He Lan. Seeing this, He Lan's trademark smile fades as he stares at Xia Yi, who had suddenly widened the distance between them. He is now treating He Lan as a stranger. Tension and silence ascended in the area, especially between He Lan and Xia Yi. As the cause of this situation, Yi Zhang felt guilty. He was reluctant to enter his own office for the first time. Li Xing, seeing his lover's situation, had no other choice but to pat his back in comfort and gesture to him to get inside, as they still had serious business to talk about. Taking a seat at the free couch, the couple waited for He Lan to speak. Sighs hearing He Lan's side in that quiet office made Yi Zhang flinch. It was an instinctive action. They watched He Lan stand up and walked towards a shelf and took a file from it. On his way he took a few post-it paper and a pen on Yi Zhang's table, then returned to the table, completely ignoring Xia Yi this time. He has no smile, not even an expression on his face. There is only seriousness, coldness and detachment. Seeing this, Xia Yi, who was observing him, secretly gripped his hands into fist. He felt an unbearable pain in his chest, which is now full of anxiety and agitation. He knew he was wrong to suddenly ignore He Lan before clarifying his own feelings. But he couldn't let himself like someone else aside from Gui Lan. He could only sacrifice He Lan to establish his loyalty towards his feelings for Gui Lan. He Lan placed the files he took and left it opened on the table. This is the exact location of Inferno's headquarters. He Lan pointed at the map and pictures from the file. Yi Zhang's eyes widened in disbelief. After all, the location He Lan pointed to is the head state palace. The eternal palace where the president lives. "Is this true?" exclaimed Yi Zhang in shock. This time even Xia Yi and Li Xing's faces were dark in skepticism. Xia Yi asked, "How sure are you?" 100%. "I'm willing to bet my life on it if it's not there," replied He Lan, but he never met Xia Yi's eyes at that moment. His gesture of plainly ignoring him and his careless attitude towards him made Xia Yi frown, but he didn't say anything. They've watched He Lan scribble something on the post-it note on his lap as he speaks, but their attention is still on the files placed on the top of the table. They have lots of espers on their side and a numerous amount of modern weapons in their possession as well. You should make preparations. Li Xing looked at He Lan. Is there any suggestion, Sir He? He asked. There is. Make preparations to capture the Li family, especially Li Guang, secretly. He is a traitor and he works for Inferno. This is the real agenda behind his reason for joining SID, said Gui Lan. Li Xing's expression turned extremely ugly at this information. He knew that there is a reason for Li Guang to be able to join SID despite his Li family getting kicked out of the city. No wonder the Gui clan, who is led by the Prime Minister himself, wasn't able to stop the Li family from returning back in this place. It was because they had the backing of the president that the minister's household couldn't tussle with them. I will make the preparations, said Yi Zheng as he held his lover's hands in comfort. Seeing this gesture, He Lan's eyes couldn't help but show envy towards their love. When Xie Yi saw this, the pain in heart was unendurable. It was like someone was stabbing on it directly. It made the confusion in his mind deeper. Good. Axing, stay with your lover. I will handle the preparation with the institute. Focus on the Li family first. You should schedule the date when you will raid the Eternal Palace. Just send me a message and I will send the reinforcement after you, said Gui Lan. Sir He. Thank you. Said Li Xing. He Lan pats his head for a while with a smile which disappears immediately after his hand leaves the head of Li Xing. He continues to speak. I will take a rest for today and tomorrow. Inform me if all preparation on this side is complete. I would also stop helping with the other cases for now. Placing the papers and pen on the table. I guess this will be all for today. Good work, said He Lan. He didn't even wait for the rest to speak after him and stood up. He left the office without looking back. They could even see his back straight and there is no hesitation in his strides. Once he left, the office was once again befallen of quietness. No one speaks. Because everyone knows that the current situation is too serious for them to worry about other things. Seeing that his lover had something to say to Xie Yi, Li Xing chose to excuse himself from the room. He cleaned up the table, took the scribbles and trashes He Lan had left. Li Xing said, I will have someone check on the situation with Li Guang and the Li family. The two of you should take your time to talk, he said. Yi Zheng nodded at his lover as he held his hands. Wait for me in your office. I will bring you home after work. Li Xing smiled and replied, okay. I will wait for you. After that he left the office. Yi Zheng and Xie Yi, who were left inside the room, had a serious conversation. It was Yi Zheng who spoke first. Dage, aren't you a bit too insensitive? His expression was serious when he said this. Xie Yi sighed. His face looked calm but within his eyes were chaos he couldn't comprehend. This is better. I will slowly distance myself from He Lan. I choose Gui Lan so there is no space for others. Don't convince me otherwise cause it will be no use, replied Xie Yi. A sardonic smile appeared on Yi Zheng's face as he held his forehead. No, you are not insensitive. You are just a cruel bastard, said Yi Zheng. Yes. I am a cruel person. You should be used to it by now, replied mocking himself, Xie Yi, as he combed up his hair to control his frustrations. Out of nowhere the door of the office was forcefully opened by someone. They saw an aghast Li Xing by the door holding a post-it note in his hand. There was disbelief and shock in his eyes as he looked around the room, especially at Xie Yi. Yi Zheng calls, Xinger. Li Xing moved his eyes to his lover and ran towards him, showing the post to him to read himself. There are 3 post-it notes in Li Xing's hand, 2 were opened. He opened it because it was a note left for him and Yi Zheng. Obviously these post-it papers were the ones He Lan scribbled with just a few moments ago. Post-it number 1. By the way, the identity of your Reaper is the man in front of you. You should clarify things with him. I lied on our first meeting that I didn't see the appearance of the Reaper. I saw Xie Yi wearing all black clothes from head to toes, with his long gray hair tied up with a single band and his bloody red irises glowing under the moonlight. Xie Yi is your dear Reaper. Post-it number 2. I will take a vacation for a while. Few days or a week, I guess. You could contact Yunli while I'm not around. Yi Zheng's eyes widened in shock when he saw what was written on the paper. The couple looked at Xie Yi, who was looking at them with a bewilderment. What is it? Asked Xie Yi. Yi Zheng passed the first post-it note to Xie Yi to let him read the contents. But after reading it, the only reaction they got from Xia Yi is that he raised his eyebrow, showing a bit startled, but only that. So he really knew. Can only feel remnant emotions is a lie. He should be able to see through past events as he wishes. His special ability shouldn't be empathic retrocognition but the high-leveled cognition skill to clearly see the past events. Retrocognition, said Xia Yi. Li Xing and Yi Zheng looked at him with widened eyes. Yi Zheng even started to point at him. Xia Yi slapped his finger down. Stop, point. That's rude, said Xia Yi. Yi Zheng said. Dage, you are really the Reaper. Yes, replied Xia Yi straightforwardly. Su Luan works for me. Yun seems to noticed it ahead of time because of his lover. It is you two who took too long to notice it was me. Then those people who've killed are all, said Li Xing. External executives of Inferno from the external branches I've destroyed. I couldn't openly help you because they got an eye over me, replied Xia Yi as he hid the written post-it note by He Lan. He didn't even notice why he did that. Not only that, he was even eyeing the rest of the post-it on Li Xing's hand. What is written on the rest? Asked Xia Yi. Well. Just an ordinary informative message, said Li Xing as he passed the second post-it note. They've already finished reading. Xia Yi took it and read the contents with a contemplation. Then he saw Li Xing pass a closed third post-it note with his name label on it. This is the third on. I didn't open it. Since it was for you, said Li Xing. Xia Yi took the post-it note and read the contents. After reading the last paper, the expression on his face turned uglier and gloomy. Xia Yi crumples the post-it notes and hides it in his coat's inner pocket with the other two post-it. He then prepares to take his leave. I will make preparations on my side too. We will meet again here in 3 days, said Xia Yi, who walked away from the office in huge strides. Yi Zheng and Li Xing looked at each other confusedly. They didn't know what was written on the last note. But based on Xia Yi's hideous expression after reading the contents, what was written must be personal and something that made Xia Yi extremely unhappy. Xinger, what do you think is written on that post-it note? Asked Yi Zheng. Li Xing replied. Must be something personal between the two of them. XIE.GE obviously didn't choose He Lan. I know, right? Forget it. If something is wrong, Dage is definitely at fault, said Yi Zheng. On the other hand, Xia Yi, who is walking alone in an empty corridor in the middle of the night, had an ugly expression on his face. Something in his mind was whispering. It was obviously Yi Xiaojie's voice. In the midst of that 15 years, that man called Yi Xiaojie woke up and almost killed him. He said that it was his fault that Lan'er is in that state. He, Yi Xiaojie, was saying that if I, Xia Yi, were not him, he would have eliminated me. Saying things he couldn't understand. Then that was the last dream where I met Yi Xiaojie. I stopped dreaming about him. I thought he was gone for good since I've grown up. But lately, since I've met He Lan, Yi Xiaojie's voice can be heard somewhere in my head. No, it was directly coming out from his soul. Saying things like, you are not allowed to make him angry. You are not allowed to make him hungry. You are not allowed to make him sad. Ednel.co, you are not allowed to let others touch him. You are not allowed to let him be harmed. You are not allowed to let him escape. If he's gone, you and I will be nothing. Now, he has been clearly hearing Yi Xiaojie's voice loudly in his mind. You made him sad. Follow him. You are at fault because you hurt him. Look for him before he disappears again. If he really chooses to leave, then we will not be able to see him again. Not here and never in the future. Xia Yi held his head as it was aching too unbearably that he wanted to smash it on the wall. Just as when he thought he would go crazy in pain, Xia Yi suddenly stopped holding his head. Then he took out the crumpled post he hid in his coat just now and read it once again. The contents of the post is just one sentence. You'll regret that you've rejected me. Xia Yi intently looked at the crumpled paper on his palms and gently smoothed it. His movements were so careful as if afraid of tearing the note. He then folds it into half and hid it once again in his inner pocket. Then he uttered in that dark hallway, "I'm already regretting it, Jinger," he said when he looked at the scenery beyond the window. A huge moon was peering on him. Xia Ye's crimson eyes were slowly tainting with hints of darkness. Within this darkness are endless stars and galaxies. This man is obviously not the original Xia Yi alone. He is now both Xia Yi and Yi Xiajie. Both soul fragments were now trying to merge as one. Chapter 86. 4.24 Third Blue Star. Reinforcement. You are listening at NovelFull.audio. Same evening. At Psyche Institute. Dean's office. He Lan informed Professor Sen and Yunli about the plan. The details he told the two of them were just the same as what he told Yizheng and the rest. He was asking them to make the preparation while he was away. I wanted to go back home to make my own preparation as the enemies had the backer of the president. I will talk to my father about the aftermath procedures, said Gui Lan. After all, in front of these two the appearance they are seeing is his real face as Gui Lan. Not as He Lan. Leave the preparation here to me. You can go ahead and focus on yours, my lord, said Professor Senior. Do I have to return back to the clan with you, Alan? Asked Yunli. Gui Lan replied while enjoying his milk tea. There is no need. I will go back alone. We should let the enemy know that we already knew their plans. Okay. I will stay here, answered Yunli. You should go ahead and rest, Ayun. I still have few things to talk with Senior, said Gui Lan. Yunli stood up and bowed his head once towards Gui Lan. Have a pleasant evening, young master. Gui Lan nodded and smiled at him before Yunli left the room to have his rest. After the latter left, the smile on Gui Lan's face disappeared. Sen, my real plan is different from theirs. I needed them to be all out of Metropolitan Headquarters. Make sure to talk to them and plan the schedule a week after. Talk to Kolu and Lin Yi about this. Tell them it's my orders, said Gui Lan. This. I don't mind. But will you be alright? Asked Sen as he knew the current state of Gui Lan's soul. Despite sleeping for 15 years, the injuries in his soul were only suppressed by not healed. Gui Lan is unable to heal the injuries on his souls as it was a penalty bestowed upon by the divine laws. As long as he is inside this star where he received the punishment, there is no way he could heal his injuries. All of Gui Lan's listed qualifications are done by him in a day. After using his special ability. Authority on them, all necessary papers were prepared for him. Gui Lan didn't look at him. As the one injured, he knew his current state more than anyone. This is also the reason why he didn't want Xia Yi to know that He Lan is Gui Lan. He was seriously wishing that Yi Xiajie's soul fragment in this world would remain asleep at least until he finished cleaning up the trash, destroyer, in this small star. Though he knew how angry that man would be when he learned about this and his current state. I know what state I'm in. Don't venture into my personal affairs, said Gui Lan. I'm sorry I've overstepped my boundaries, replied Senior. All of the sudden 2 system prompts were heard in their heads. Send system. Xiao Bei's, the reinforcement from the God system had arrived. You. Host, a higher being from another system had arrived. With the room an immortal-like man in silver-white cultivation clothes appeared. There is a benign smile on his handsome face. Silvery gray layered long hair and grayish-blue eyes. This person is a reinforcement that comes over who was said that will help in eliminating the destroyer of this world. As soon as he appeared, he took over the authority over the 2 systems inside the room. This man looked at the white cat on Sen's shoulder and the invisible hovering moon around Gui Lan. Enforced command. Authority from the core unit. God System. System 1003 of God System, Base System Executioner 13th ranked of Nether System, U. Execute command. Temporary shut down. This kind-looking mind said. As soon as those words were said, the two systems inside the room had entered sleep mode. With this, the two systems' connection to their host was cut off. During this whole event, only Sen was panicking like a headless chicken. He hugs his white kitten system in his arms with tears in his eyes. Xiao Bai. Xiao Bai. What happened? Xiao Bai, said Sen, panicking. Seeing his reaction, Gui Lan almost rolled his eyes on him. On his hand is his little moon, whose glow is now dull. Shut up. They are only asleep. They would be fine after this guy here took his leave, said Gui Lan to Sen, who looked at him with confusion. Why did he? Asked Senior. Because I need to have a serious conversation with Sire here. Actually, you should sleep as well. Slumber, host Lu Yen. Once the newly arrived man said this, Sen started to feel sleepy until he had fallen asleep completely on his office table. Okay. Now that the disturbances are asleep, I guess we should begin. The man in the silvery white robe said as he smiled at Gui Lan, who was looking at his sleeping system with calmness and tranquility in his eyes. As always, there is only indifference and coldness in his eyes unless he is looking at his family or Yi Xiajie. All others were just strangers to this celestial god. The man in silvery white robes walked towards Gui Lan and stood in front of him. Then this man suddenly kneeled on one knee and saluted respectfully towards Gui Lan. God of Reincarnation, Chao Xincheng. At your service, young Lord He Anjing. Gui Lan finally looked at the man before him as his turquoise orbs slowly turned silver as he stared down at this so-called reincarnation god. The color of silver is He Anjing's real-like color as a god. While azure is the original color of his eyes when he is in his real human form. You are already one of the sovereign gods of God's system, but you still act like you are a servant. Uncle Baojun had already accepted you as his direct disciple. There is no need for you to treat me with so much respect, Chao Xincheng. Said He Anjing. With all due respect, as the most beloved nephew of Master Sire is in a higher position than this little one. Responded Chao Xincheng respectfully as before. He Anjing averted his eyes and sighed. Stand. Take your seat and we'll continue our talk. How about our surroundings? Chao Xincheng followed what he was told and took a seat at the opposite couch to where He Anjing sat. Young lord has nothing to worry. I've isolated this whole room. We are now in a different space. He replied. I see. Good work. Said He Anjing. Chao Xincheng observes his young lord in front of him and his smile disappears when he sees that his soul is badly injured. Young lord, did you truly defy the divine law for a mere nether god? Asked Chao Xincheng. For some reason Chao Xincheng's question offended He Anjing as he glared at him. A simple glare for He Anjing is enough to injure Chao Xincheng as suddenly coughs a bit of blood. Mere. You call my, He Anjing's, other half with the word mere? Who do you think you are? There's an evident range within those silvery orbs and the separated space. Chao Xincheng is on the verge of breaking with just a single glare from this youngest celestial god of all realms. Chao Xincheng panicked when he saw blood trails from the corner of He Anjing's lips. Obviously he is overexerting his soul to show his anger. Please calm down. I apologize. I take back all the words I've said that offended the young lord. Please calm your anger. Your soul is already too badly injured. Said Chao Xincheng as he suddenly kneeled down once again. Chao Xincheng understands how important the other half means to those with Mo bloodline. People of Mo clan are extremely loyal towards their chosen partner. Aside from their family, only the chosen other half of a Mo could incur that much of emotion from someone who has the bloodline of Mo. Someone from this bloodline could only love a person in their whole life. This love is eternal and nothing could change it. This is the reason why those of Mo bloodline are extremely protective of their partners. Because becoming their other half means receiving everything from another person. I gave my everything to you, so your everything is my everything. You are mine and I am yours. He Anjing calms his anger this time. This is the first time Chao Xincheng had offended him. He is willing to forgive him this one time. Watch your mouth next time. The person I have chosen cannot be looked down upon, said He Anjing. My deepest apologizes. I vowed that it would never happen again, said Chao Xincheng. But young lord, the injury on your soul is too much. This is the reason the master had tasked me to descend here in this little star. Master wanted me to give you this. Chao Xincheng presented blood-red and crystal-white soul stones to He Anjing. With the help of these soul stones He Anjing would be able to heal his soul injuries and strengthen his other half's soul fragments. Seeing the stone He Anjing's silvery irises sparkle, he waves his hands and the stone floats towards him. A gentle smile appeared on his face. This is a true smile that can only be received by those of the same bloodline of him and his other half. He Anjing smiled because he knew these divine-ranked soul stones were a gift from his beloved uncle. His uncle and uncle-in-law had always doted on him even before they had their own children. His personal soul weapon, Death Scythe, is a personally refined weapon from his uncle. It is unbreakable and only him and his other half could wield it. With another wave of his hand he hid the stones in his personal inventory space. A space that even his system had no authority on it. Tell uncle that I am very delighted with the gift and give a thanks in Axia's behalf, said Guilan. Chao Xincheng smiled when he heard that. Master would be ecstatic to hear that from the young lord. Are there further orders? Send a message personally to the current Deputy Lord God of Nether System. Tell him that my memories have returned and to act the same as always. There are too many eyes watching. He shouldn't let anyone else approach Axia's body while I gather his remaining fragments. If he failed to protect the vessel of Axi, then I would kill him and return him to nothingness, said He Anjing. As for the problems of destroyers in this world, you can leave it to me. It is just a mere ant that I've turned a blind eye on. I will execute him myself since he dared to target my other half's soul fragments. You may leave now. I shall follow your command. Chao Xincheng saluted for one last time. Before he left he returned back to normal and left the little star as he was ordered. He didn't really descend as small as the reinforcement. There is no need for that, after all He Anjing is already in this world. Once the other person left, the two systems who were forced to shut down and Lu Yen who was spellbound to force sleep had woken up. He Anjing's eyes returned to aquamarine tint. You. Host, that venerable one is someone from the God system. Yes. He is just an old man who couldn't get his vacation approved, replied Guilan. Bays. Host. Host. Stupid host. Wake up. You sleepyhead Lu Yen. The white kitten suddenly scratched Professor Sun and forced him to wake up. When the latter opens his eyes, his face feels so painful that tears strolls down from his eyes. Owie, why did you scratch my face, Xiao Bays? Don't tell you've been jealous of my pretty face all along. Bays. TSK. Yes, so let me scratch it a few more times. My stupid host. The white kitten gave him more, scratched and more. Until his host couldn't even dare to touch his face anymore. It hurts eh? That person is gone, said Professor Sun as he couldn't find that man in robes from before. Then he looked at Guilan who was enjoying his tea. My lord, did that person leave? I thought he came here as reinforcement, said Senior. I told him I would be enough to clean up. Just follow the plan I told you to do so. Your rewards will be doubled when you finish your task in this world. Just focus on that, said Guilan as he stood up preparing to leave and rest for the night. Bewildered Professor Sun responded. Oh, okay. After that Guilan took his leave. The system and host pair were left alone in the room. Xiao Bays, why are you so silent? Asked Senior. I was wondering how thick is your skin that you are able to speak with the venerable lord like that without fear. I don't know if you are a heavenly genius or just a lucky idiot. What do you mean? Asked Sen with ignorance painted on his face. Sigh, I guess it was the latter. Chapter 87. 4.25 Third Blue Star. Where is he? You are listening at novelfull.audio. Afternoon. Psyche Institute. Everyone made their own preparations. After Yi Zhang and Li Xing reported the information that they've gathered to their guardians, Ku Lu and Lin Yi. The latter couple visited Professor Sen and talked about the schedule of their plans. Xia Yi came with them as the representative of his Gui clan. Members of the meeting. Representative from Gui clan. Xia Yi representative from SID. Ku Lu and Lin Yi representative from Psyche Institute. Professor Senior. Their people were planning the whole track of the events that would unfold. From the destruction of Inferno to planning the aftermath once everything was cleared up. Professor Sen spoke, it will take at least 4.5 days before I'm able to gather up all the espers on my side. I guess you would have to call them all back in this situation. I suggest we put the plan in action a week from now, said Ku Lu. Lin Yi with a gentle smile on his face said, we will do our best to back you guys up. I will lead the front lines personally. Ai and Aksu will move with me. Ali and Ayun would remain with the remaining team for support and take the lead after we separated from the larger team, said Xia Yi. What did the Gui clan plan to do? Asked Professor Senior. Xia Yi, they will simmer down the effects that may fall on the normal people. They would at least evacuate the people 100 meters that settle around the Eternal Palace. That would be great. As the battle between espers left too much after effects for normal people like us to bear, said Lin Yi. I will do my best to keep the casualties at best minimum, said Xia Yi. Ku Lu sighed. That would be great. It would be better with the young master around. At least you can share the burden, he said. I can bear all the burden this time. He already bore all of it 15 years ago, said Xia Yi. These sentences he spouted had lead silence inside the room. Everyone inside this room knew the meaning of Xia Yi's words. They could still remember the small figure of Gui covered in dust standing in front of their group as he put up a huge barrier made of ice, protecting them and blocking the enemy for them. The strongest esper in the world, Gui Lan. Okay. Since the plan is finalized, I and Yi would go back to the headquarters and help our son and son.in.law in preparations. Are you coming over? Xia Yi asked Ku Lu. No, I need to meet someone, said Xia Yi. Professor Sen knew that Xia Yi might be here to look for He Lan. If you are looking for He Lan, he isn't around. He went home just this morning. I know. It was Yun Li whom I need to talk to, replied Xia Yi. Professor replied, if it was Yun Li then he would be in the library with Su Luan. They spend most of their dates there. Then please excuse me. Xia Yi left the dean's office after bidding his goodbye. These three old men watched Xia Yi leave the office with heavy footsteps. Ku Lu spoke, it's been hard on that boy. He had been busy with Gui clan, then helps our stupid son, Ai with SID sometimes. Now he has to lead this plan on his own, taking numerous on his shoulders. It will be soon 16 years until the day he gets separated from Gui Lan. It is amazing that he could still bear it. His obsession towards the young master is too heavy. If he could let go of that, he would be able to have a normal life, said Lin Yi. I heard from our son that someone fancies him. They got along too well for 6 months and so, but then he still rejected the child. What was the child's name again? Said Ku Lu. He Lan. The special officer as was invited to work for SID, said Lin Yi. Yes. That child. Xia Yi rejected him yesterday. I heard the young man is the greatest beauty in our department, said Ku Lu. Lin Yi, I haven't seen someone even more attractive than young master. Professor Sen interrupted, both of them were heavenly beauties. They even saw they share similar temperament. Isn't that good then? Why did that brat reject He Lan then? Asked Kolu. Lin Yi responded, as said that Xia Yi still chose the young master over the child, unfortunately. Sadly, indeed, said Professor Senior. Kolu sighed, that brat is just too obsessed. Institute's library. Yunli was reading his book in silence as always while Su Luan was sleeping using his lap as a pillow. The atmosphere between this couple is too serene and quiet. Like they have their own worlds. This serenity was broken by the new arrival of someone else. It was Xia Yi. As soon as he felt his boss's presence, Su Luan instantly opened his eyes and sat up properly beside his lover. Yunli. Xia Yi stood before the couple and there was nothing but calmness on his face. But through his crimson eyes one could see through his feelings. There is yearning and restrained sadness within it. This person is obviously reaching his limit soon. Yunli stared at Xia Yi but did nothing aside from that. Su Luan calls, boss, you need something from Lear, he asked. I'm not here to harm him. If I did Lanner would be very angry, replied Xia Yi. Hearing this, Su Luan's vigilance relaxed. After all he left immense danger coming from Xia Yi. He thought that the latter is here to harm his lover. If it's like that then even if he is his boss, Su Luan wouldn't stand aside to watch his own lover get bullied even if the enemy happens to be his boss. Su Luan asked, why are you here, boss? Is the meeting over? The plan was finalized. It was scheduled to be done a week from now. Xia Yi continues to speak. I came here to ask Yunli. When his name was mentioned Yunli closed his book and began the business before him. Yunli asked, what is it that you wish to know? Xia Yi stared at Yunli for a few seconds before he looked at the window near them. Then he spoke as if narrating a children's book story. His voice is mellow and gentle unlike his usually cold and emotionless tone. He doesn't like eating his vegetables especially the green and orange ones. He doesn't drink milk but likes milk tea. He could bear boredom and does crazy things for entertainment. A frown appears on his face whenever his tummy hurts even a little bit. He is lazy by nature and loves to tease me and those he likes. The speech of Xia Yi didn't stop from there. He is afraid of the cold and always wears 2 to 3 layers of clothes. He likes cleanliness and hates strangers from touching him. He is moody and he is like someone with personality disorder. He could smile at first and then look cold at second. Despite his cold temperament, he treats those he likes with a pampering gesture like patting their heads like a child. He is a very good liar but would still honestly give you the truth if you asked him. Su Luan is so confused with whatever his boss is saying. His lover beside him is now wear a frown on his face as the word Xia Yi's carry on. His special skills should be telepathy and authority but. Xia Yi then looked at his subordinate who was totally confused of the current event unfolding before him but he ignored that and asked Su Luan, you've said Lanner read your memories 15 years ago. The confused Su Luan can only answer honestly, yes. He did. Did he touch your hand and closed his eyes, asked Xia Yi. Su Luan thought deeply as he was thinking of that event from 15 years ago. He did remember Gui Lan holding his and Yunli's hands when he checked their memories. Yes. He said to be able to use his ability. He needs to hold our hands while he concentrates on looking through our memories. He closed his eyes when he activated his retro. WOA, are you for real? Exclaimed Su Luan who finally realized what his boss was trying to say. He then looked at his lover seated beside him. His lover is obviously now wearing an icy expression on his neutral face. Just seeing these changes on his lover's face made him discern that all his conjectures in his mind were correct. That He Lan is indeed Gui Lan. Su Luan's thoughts. I heard the boss rejected He Lan yesterday. Fuck. Stupid boss, why would you choose be so obsessed of the memories in the past when the current one is already beside you in the present? Xia Yi moved his gaze back to Yunli. Since when did you realize? Asked Yunli who finally spoke after Xia Yi's long speech. Xia Yi honestly replied. Yesterday. I heard you've rejected him, said Yunli. Xia Yi bit his lower lips in his regret. That was my fault. Yunli continues to egg him. When I confronted him that day he said that he was expecting that you would be the first one to recognize him among the rest of us, said Yunli. Xia Yi replied with silence. He said that you aren't able to see him clearly at all. He was so close to you. You've even spent time together for half a year already. Now you are telling me that you've only recognized him yesterday. Are you that blind surnamed Xia? Scolded Yunli. Xia Yi couldn't help but lowered his head as he was wrong. I'm wrong, said Xia Yi, but Yunli snorted at him. I also know that he had gone back to Guilan. Yunli responded, Alan will just drop by there. His final destination is not there. Where is he? Asked Xia Yi. Chapter 88. 4.26 Third Blue Star. My clothes. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Psyche Institute's library. Where is he? Asked Xia Yi. Yunli just stared at him and didn't answer right away. In the end Yunli chose to avert his eyes first and once again opened the book to read. I don't know where he is. Even if I know I won't tell you, replied Yunli. Xia Yi sighed just based on Yunli's response. It is obvious that the latter also didn't know where Guilan was. Sighed. I will take my leave, said Xia Yi, intending to leave the library. Su Luan on the other hand felt that his boss was too pitiful and could only gesture at his lover, Yunli, to help him. The couple conversed with their eyes and Yunli could only divulge something helpful for Xia Yi. Wait. I really don't know where Alan is right now. After all, he is the type of person you wouldn't be able to catch just because you wish to. But you can try waiting at the manor. You've gone there a few times, right? That place and this whole institute are under his name. In short, he is the real owner of this land and everything on it. Though he left everything to the professor to handle. Xia Yi stopped for a moment and listened to Yunli's words. Yun says, I don't know any passcode as Alan usually changes his security code at his manor at scheduled time. Anyone who entered a wrong passcode would be banned in the whole institute for trespassing. But if it's you. I had a feeling you could enter his house. Why don't you try it? Thank you, said Xia Yi before he left the place. Few moments after Xia Yi left, Su Luan asked, Lear, why did you say that if it's the boss, he would be able to enter Guilan's manor? Isn't that the place that has the heaviest security in this whole place? You haven't visited the place which you didn't know. Everything inside that house is made in pairs. From slippers to cups, plates to utensils, even the clothes that perfectly match Xia Yi's figure. Alan prepared it for him. That is a house that Alan prepared for them to live together, replied Yunli. For real. I thought it was only my boss who is obsessed. You would have thought that the other one is also like that, murmured Su Luan. Yunli responded, it is true that this land, the manor and the institute itself is under Guilan's name, but the other owner of this place is him as well. You know why? Shit. This is too much, replied Su Luan in astonishment. It was sunset when Xia Yi had reached the manor hidden behind the institute. As always, the house is constructed in the middle of the forest and detached to the place where people crowd. This manor gave the feeling of security and isolation. A land that is only for him. A Stygian manor. The exterior is semi-modern and classic. Walls were covered in rambling roses and the flower buds aren't in full bloom yet, attached on the house walls climbing like vines. The outside seems to be free and there is no security at all, but Xia Yi could feel countless of hidden cameras whose location is arduous to find. Only a layman wouldn't notice the existence of the security cameras scattered around the manor. Xia Yi stood in front of the pure white door. He is indecisive of what he should be doing next. He took a few more looks at the dark unlit windows. Apparently there was no one inside the house. He lighted his hands and was about to knock on the door, but he remembers that there should be no one inside right now. In his hesitation he laid his palm on the white door while thinking of what he should do next. He didn't know that as soon as he placed his palm on the surface of the white door that his identity was getting verified. The door had a scanning mechanism for security purposes. Guilin only gives away temporary key access for the guest who made an appointment with him ahead of time. The real method to access the house security is to pass the scan verification of the house database. In this manner only two people's biometrics are registered. One of them is Guilin and the other is. Biometrics verifications completed. Company owner, Xiaoye's biometric matched. The door will now be unlocked. A machine voice suddenly announced. Xiaoye was startled at first but understood when he heard the lock of the door's manner clicked open for him. Clicked. Xiaoye held the doorknob and twisted it to open the door. As soon as he opened the door and entered inside the house, the lights inside the manor had all turned on. Even the cleaning machines on standby booted and started a daily cleaning routine inside the house. A humanoid robot butler approached Xiaoye helping him with his coat. Master Xia, you finally come over. Let me take your coat for you, said the humanoid butler called Zero. This isn't the first time Xiaoye had met Zero. They've already met countless times when he comes over to fetch Hei Lan before or when he comes over for a meal. Now that he remembers, this is the first time he came here to sleep over. He passed his coat to Zero and wore the black slippers he wears every time he came over. Obviously fitted slippers. This is meant for him to wear as this is something Guilin prepared for him. Is Lanner home? Asked Xiaoye. Unfortunately, but Master Gui said he would be away for a few days and even Zero doesn't know when he will return. I was only programmed to serve Master Xia if you came over, replied Zero. I see, disappointedly replied Xiaoye to the house butler. Zero spoke, the dinner can be served in half an hour. Will you have one, Master Xia? No. I will rest early instead. Prepare a wine bottle for me. I will be sleeping in the master's bedroom, responded Xiaoye. As you wish. The bath in the master's bedroom will be prepared in 15 minutes. Please rest for a short moment, said Zero before walking away to hang Xiaoye's coat to the stand near the doorway and complete the preparations for the rest of his program tasks. Xiaoye on the other hand looked around the manor. This time he intently discerned things that he didn't take notice of in his former visits. In the living room, the fireplace was lit as he walked by. On the table he saw a rare print of new paper dated for today. In this high-technology world, newspapers are rarely printed as papers are scarce and most documents can be read online. But had the hobby of reading newspapers during his free time. Printed papers that can be held in his hands made him less bored when he had nothing to do. It's not that he didn't like using holographic screens to read the news, but he is more comfortable reading printed prints instead. Beside it is an astray, he knew that Guilin doesn't smoke and this thing was prepared for him to use. He walked around towards the kitchen and saw that the plates, utensils and cups were prepared in pairs. Precisely couple pairs for him and Guilin. Black for him and white for Guilin. Looking around every room and corner of the house, Xiaoye could even notice that the interior designs of the house are in line with his taste. Obviously the house was made with him in mind. Guilin had this manor made for the two of them. This is their home. No wonder that every time I came over Guilin's eyes would sparkle as if anticipating something from him. He would always pull him in a room to another room and would always observe his reaction. Only to show a helpless and disappointed pout when he saw that I didn't notice anything at all. Then ignore me for a short while before his mood returns to normal. He must have wanted me to notice the things he had greatly prepared only for me. I made him sad all the time instead. I must be blind not to notice his expectations. Murmured Xiaoye as he loathed his past self of those moments. Xiaoye returns to the living room and takes a seat as he wallows in his distress in silence. Only now he noticed every gesture and action Guilin had been doing for him to notice. Guilin told him that he was here. That he is back. I only need to point it out for him to tell me everything. Xia Yi understood the reason why Guilin hid his identity even when he returned. Because their enemies are still around, there is a possibility of them running away and hiding somewhere even harder for them to look for. Once these people concealed themselves and mixed up with the normals, it would even be harder to defend from their attack if we don't even know where they are hiding. There is also the possibility of putting them in danger once their identities got linked with Guilin. 15 years ago, except for Guilin, none of their records were left for the syndicate to salvage. Guilin destroyed it himself and the enemy only knew Guilin's appearance but none of theirs. This is the most viable reason for Guilin's concealment. Xia Yi was suddenly approached by Zero. Master Xia, the bath is ready. Xia Yi just nodded at the housekeeper robot and climbed up to the master's bedroom. Zero escorted him the whole time while holding a tray of his wine and glasses. The humanoid housekeeper had opened the door for Xia Yi. Once he entered the room, Xia Yi's nose was assaulted with the familiar scent of sweetness and peppermint. Xia Yi has always thought that this smell is a perfume used by Guilin, but remembering it now, the latter had always had this scent on his body. The first time he gets a whiff of this scent is when they were children. He remembered that he used to always keep Guilin in his embrace, especially when they were sleeping. This is the scent that gave him a relaxing warmth which used to always accompany in his sleep. After Xia Yi watched Zero finish preparing his drink at the small table by the side of the king-sized bed at the center of the room, he then asked him to retire for the night. Zero, after you finish the rest of the cleaning task in the house. Go on standby mode, said Xia Yi. Zero bowed his head and replied, I will comply. Master Xia, a pleasant evening, he left after saying those programmed words. Soon as he was left alone, Xia Yi's presence turned gloomy. After all, he is alone in this huge manor and even alone in this huge bedroom. If not for the remnant scent of Guilin inside the bedroom, he would go home even if it's already past midnight. The aroma of glacé and mint calmed down his dark emotions. He pulled off his tie and walked towards the wardrobe looking for clothes that might fit him. He didn't forget his plan to take a bath. Seeing that his Lana had a smaller figure than him, he remembered that one time when he and the rest of the team came over to the first time. Because of Li Guang pushing Yi Zheng on the ground, the latter had gotten dirty as if playing with mud. Guilin that time lent him some spare clothes that are even slightly bigger than him. As someone who had that very same size, obviously those spare clothes would fit him well. He is looking for those clothes. Upon opening the wardrobe, Xia Yi doesn't know what he should feel. In front of his eyes were clothes that matched his taste, and it was placed together with smaller clothes that were obviously prepared for Guilin. Inside the cabinet are clothes for the owners of the house. Half of it is for Guilin while the other half is of his size. It was something that Guilin arranged for him to wear. Those spare clothes that Yi Zheng wore that day were his clothes. Clothes that are meant only for him, which are put together by Guilin with him in his mind. I must get that shirt and pants back from Yi Zheng tomorrow. Those are my clothes. Uttered Xia Yi. His pettiness doesn't let him allow others to wear the clothes Guilin arranged for him. Because of this, Yi Zheng would be crying for a few weeks because he lost that pair of shirt and pants. Xia Yi would be pressuring him every day until he returned his clothes. Chapter 89. 4.27 Third Blue Star. Homeless, you are listening at novelfull.audio. It's been 3 days since Xia Yi started living in Guilin's manor. No one cared about him, just the fact that his name is written on the documents that he is one of the company owners of this land. Xia Yi was even able to enter the manor without key codes from Guilin. His biometrics is obviously recorded as the owner of the house. SID Headquarters. Office of the Chief. Xia Yi comes over to check the progress on Yi Zheng and Li Xing's side. While Li Xing is interrogating his twin brother with an esper who could influence one's will, Yi Zheng and Xia Yi were in the office waiting for him. The chief is currently buried under his working while peeking at his big brother seating on the customized couch which Guilan usually occupies. He looks at Xia Yi in a state of dubiety. Yi Zheng's thoughts. What's wrong with Dage? Why is he folding the couch cover so carefully as if it's an invaluable object? That blanket is only a few dollars worth, a cotton couch cover bought by Hei Lan in a night market. Urgent help. Hashtag someone help me, my elder brother Hajoni insane. Hashtag on the other hand, Xia Ye's thoughts were that of a worried husband. The texture of this couch cover is not good for Lanner's sensitive skin. He'll get rashes. The pillow is not big enough and not soft at all. Let's bring these home and bring a replacement tomorrow. Thoughts of Xia Yi. Then, as if remembering something, Xia Yi, who just finished folding the blanket and pillow, looked at Yi Zheng after placing the two things on his lap like it's a treasure. Suddenly seeing Xia Yi looking at him, Yi Zheng's heart almost exploded in fear, though his face remained neutral as always. Getting stared at. Thump. 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 Damn. Did I do something wrong again? I don't remember doing something wrong. Woo-woo, someone save me. Xing please return soon. Your husband is about to get killed. Yi Zheng's inner thoughts. Ai, calls Xia Yi. Why? Yes, Dage, replied instantly Yi Zheng. Xia Yi spoke, you remembered the last time you've gone to Lanner's house, right? Lanner. Ah, Dage must be talking about Guilan. No, I haven't gone to the Gui clan's mansion lately except when Dage is there, replied Yi Zheng. Xia Yi responded. I'm talking about Hei Lan's manor. That day you have to borrow clothes to Lanner because you've played with the mud together with that man called Li Guang. Yi Zheng suddenly remembered the scene of being tackled on the muddy ground by that scheming guy. Li Guang frowned upon recollection. That. I remember. Good. Return to me the shirt and pants you've borrowed that time. I'll give you a week of time. Be sure to look for it. Else I would destroy your little den if you don't return my clothes, said Xia Yi. Yi Zheng's face paled when he heard that his house might get destroyed because of clothes. Why? Didn't Sir Hei say that the owner would mind losing a few shirts and pants? Xia Yi frowned and replied, I mind. Return those clothes to me. You have this week to look for it or else. Lanner bought those clothes for me. Why would I allow someone else to wear it? It's mine alone. Yi Zheng immediately agreed to it despite his confusion. After all, looking at Xia Ye's dark face, he knew that the latter isn't joking about destroying his house. I will look for it. As soon as possible. Woo Dage, since when did those clothes become yours? I'm so confused but more scared now. Xia Yi responded. Go clean up the Li family by tonight. Yi Zheng could only watch Xia Yi leave his office carrying the couch cover and pillow Hei Lan used to utilize. N. Xia Yi only calls Guilan as Lanner and calls Hei Lan as a Hei. Coincidentally, Li Xing returns at that moment and bumps into Xia Yi, who is on his way to leave. They bumped each other at the door. Xie.ge, you're going home early today? Asked Li Xing. Yes. Busy with something. The plan was finalized and it will be done 3 days from now. Be prepared and clean up the rest, said Xia Yi. Yes, Xie.ge. We will get everything under control before the final raid, replied Li Xing as his eyes noticed the familiar-looking pillow and blanket on Xia Yi's hands. Obviously those are Hei Lan's things. Why is Xia Yi taking it with him? That's good. I'll go now, said Xia Yi, who left at once he finished saying those words. Okay, responded Li Xing, but still bewildered. As soon as Xia Yi left Li Xing to his lover to clear the question in his mind. As why is Xie.ge bringing Sir Hei's things with him? Asked Li Xing. Yi Zheng didn't reply immediately, instead he was covered in a gloomy aura that Li Xing failed to notice. I don't know, whispered Yi Zheng as he replied to his lover's question. Li Xing, who couldn't hear his voice because it was too quiet. What? Yi Jing suddenly hugs Li Xing by his waist. Wu Xinger, save me. I will be homeless because of a pair of shirt and pants, huh? What are you talking about? Asked Li Xing. Yi Jing replied, it's Dage. He said he will destroy my house if I don't return that pair of shirt and pants. Hey! Can't you tell me the whole story? I don't understand anything responded Li Xing. Yi Jing could only tell Li Xing everything while in tears. Evening. Gui clan's main mansion. By the grid space near the huge window of the place, a young beautiful man with raven hair and sapphire eyes was seating. Looking at the scenery outside the window. The huge moon in the night sky was the only lighting in the darkness of that empty room where this young man stayed. This person was looking at the distant horizon beyond his line of sight. This drop-dead gorgeous young man is none other than Gui Lan in his Hei Lan's appearance. How are the protagonists doing? Asked Gui Lan, reporting to the host. Under the leadership of the protagonist Gong, Yi Jing and protagonist Shou, Li Xing, they captured Li Guang last night. After leaving him to their foster parents, they are now planning to capture the whole Li family. Gui Lan's face is devoid of expression while listening to his system's report. He then asked, I see. How is that man then? Gui Lan was asking about his lover. After his identity as the Reaper was exposed by the host, he helped with the preparations for the large raid against the syndicate. When the schedule for the raid had been finalized this afternoon, he came over to the library looking for Yunli to ask where the host location is. Since the host's location is unknown, he instead visited that little manor the host owned in the Institute's land. The villain is current in your manor's master's bedroom. Let's continue to leave him hanging there for a few days. He dares ignore me and reject me in such a way. Not only that he didn't recognize me, he even chose to disregard me. But host, isn't he just trying to be loyal towards his love for you? It is because he thought that Hei Lan is another person, he chose Gui Lan over everything. So what? It is his fault for not noticing it was me. I've left him too many hints, and among that little group only Yunli recognized me. But the host changing his temperament completely is to blame. What are you talking about, you? Me hating boredom, the crazy me and having personality disorder is the real me. I showed that to them when they were children. According to the host memories, you didn't. The host only acted like a well-behaved genius and a little beauty, who acts to mature despite his young age. Moreover, the Hei Lan the host portrays is like a seductress mythical fox with slight similarities to your persona when you were in your childhood. It is normal that only the very observant Yunli who likes to watch you in silence recognizes the host. Now that you've said it, I restrain my temper in fear of scaring the young version of my husband. Well, since it is like this, I will visit him later after talking to father. For now, go observe that destroyer for me. Don't get caught, okay? I will not let myself get caught. Don't worry, host. Good. You can go ahead, you. I will return soon, host. System you left to complete the task his host had given him. After separating from his host for a while, you didn't notice that a pair of argent orbs was observing him hiddenly from behind. Seeing his system take his leave, Gui Lan suddenly disappears from the grids of the window. No one notices his departure. Psyche Institute, the manor behind the institute. Master's bedroom. The lights inside the room were dimmed, only a dull lampshade by the side of the bed was lit. On the other side of the bed is a side table with uncorked red wine and half-filled glass wine. On the huge king-sized bed at the center of the room is a man in his black pajamas sleeping deeply. Only the small sound of him breathing can be heard. The person in his slumber is Xie Yi. He had Hades-black eyebrows affixed to an aesthetic face. An imperial nose, angular cheekbones on a taut skin and sharp jaw that was obdurate and unyielding. He had Corinthian shoulders above a 6-pack stomach on a Greek god's body. His body proportion is close to perfection, his muscles were firm and muscular but it doesn't look bulky, instead hale and hearty. This man looks like the most perfect being in this world. A shadow hovers above Xiaoye's head. As a cautious man, he never lets his guard down even in his sleep. Feeling another person's presence over him, Xiaoye instantly opened his eyes, revealing a fierce touch on those vermilion irises. In that split second he was able to grab the presence above him and pulled him on the bed. Caging the person below him, he was able to retaliate against the person when he suddenly heard a familiar voice. "Ouch! You've dislocated my shoulder." "Hurts woo," said Guilan, who had tears in his eyes as he couldn't move his right shoulder which Xiaoye pulled just now. Xiaoye, who was shocked speechless in seeing He Lan before him, could feel his sight swirling before him. At the beginning it was He Lan's face, slowly it turned to Guilan's features. Obsidian hair turning to aquamarine and sapphire eyes swivels to beryl. But that tempting presence of He Lan remains, though the person's whole appearance changes before him. At first Xiaoye thought it was a dream. In the last 15 years of his life he could imagine this mature Guilan in his fantasy. His voice quivers and hoarse as he calls for the name he was yearning all this time. "Lana," calls Xiaoye as he stares intently at the beautiful being under him. His eyes red and strain as he didn't want to blink, afraid that this realistic imagination of his would fade. Xiaoye could only pull the latter in his embrace to a tighter hug, as if wanted to chain the person to himself.